Hi, and welcome to your next episode. In this episode, I will be talking about phases and transitions in life and how we roll and adapt as we go through this thing called life, but also how that can impact us as individuals as we grow and expand and ebb and flow our growth as human beings, those beautiful humans that we are. So let's take it back 6 years around this time. And I had taken redundancy. I'd been on garden leave for a month, and then came D-Day, the day when I woke up and didn't have a job, when I didn't really know what I was going to do. I feel in a quite privileged position that I was able to take redundancy. So when that was offered in my job at the time, I'd worked for the same organization for 17 years, secure, permanent job. And when our company went through a reshuffle and reorganization, the uh, part of the organization that I worked for was being restructured and trimmed right down. I think we were going from 22 to 10 or 12. It was also made very clear that redundancy, although it was on the table, it was never going to be guaranteed that we would actually get it if we opted for it. So at the time, I thought, oh, why not? Let's just go for it. And lo and behold, I had the letter to say that it had been approved, and do I still want to take it? So in my job, I was very happy. I say happy. I'd been doing that job itself for 15 and a half years. So I was very secure. It didn't really push me out of my comfort levels. I was very much part of the machine. And when redundancy reared its head, and I was like, okay, I could either continue doing the same job for the next 15 years, or I could try something else. And I think that if that option of redundancy never came, I would probably still be in the job now, 6 years later. So when it came up, I thought, okay, let's just try our luck. Let's take a sideward step and see where that leads. So at that point, I was like, okay, I wouldn't mind retraining, trying something else. I've always been interested in health and well-being, and wanted to go down that path. I had thought about retraining as a fitness instructor. Passion, I love movement, exercise, dance. So I thought about retraining. At the time, my youngest were 11. So still needed quite a lot of supervision. And the training course that I looked at to become a fitness instructor involved full time. And I thought I just haven't got the capacity to travel to go and do this qualification and as well look after the children. So that didn't really fit in with my life at the time. As much as it was something that I was really quite passionate about, I just couldn't see it working. And obviously, as I've spoken about before, I don't have my family support is very limited. So it wasn't as if I had family members that I could call on that would help with supervising and looking after my children whilst I did the course. So it's very much dependent on what I could fit in around the family. So fitness instructing wasn't for me at that time. And then I retrained as a meditation instructor. So meditation for me was something that I had discovered 4 years before. It was something that was quite instrumental in my managing my depression, but also allowing me that space, that sense of calm within the craziness that life can be. So when I had the opportunity then of training with Exhale, it was something that really fit with my personality, what I was interested in. In the Exhale sessions, you always have modern music, you have meditation, you have breath work, you have a little bit of movement to really help the body settle in meditation. So it gave me everything that I was looking for at the time. So I was able then to retrain and offer that kind of holistic health, well-being that I'd been searching for. So that's how I got, that was my kind of how things had changed. So obviously that was the very end of 2019, and then obviously then we went into 2020 and lockdown and everything that happened since then. So that kind of transition and phase was quite interesting because, like I said, I'd been in a very stable career for 15 years, 17 years with the same company. And I had the opportunity, and it was an opportunity that I thought, okay, I'll just take this leap of faith, not knowing where it could take me or where it would lead, but it was something that felt very right for me. It was something that kind of lit a fire within, but I had no idea where it was going to go at that point. So like I say, I left in tail end of 2019. I then was pursuing Exhale and going through the training and accreditation with them January. And then I started part-time work in a school to allow me to build the business in whatever that direction that took me in, but also that kind of sense of stability as well. But just working 3 days, so that allowed me more time then to work on business and retraining, which is what I did. So that was a really kind of a real interesting transition phase that I was going through. So that was 6 years ago. So I was in my early 40s. And it's been a real interesting, exciting time since then, because it seems so long ago. It was a complete and utter other world. And I did the same job for 15 years. And you know how we can get very comfortable in life and relationships, and life can feel very much like a comfort blanket, and it's what we know and we don't really alter it. But I really took a leap of faith then. And when I think back over the course of my life, how many leaps of faith have I taken, or where your path has changed? And we never know what the destination is going to be. And I don't want to sound all cliche and things like that, but I do think my life has been lucky. I say lucky, but with how things have turned out. And at the time when you're going through some of these big things in life, it can seem like you're on a wing in a prayer. And life can be very unfair sometimes. And these things are sent to test you. But equally, sometimes life rewards you. And obviously, redundancy taught me that kind of taking that leap of faith and how that can manifest and grow beyond that is something really quite special. And then as we go through these different phases, so last year in the school where I work, I had the opportunity to step up, and part of that step up was taking on more responsibility. Now, I know my previous job that I had for 15 years, when people spoke about promotions and taking that step up, it was always something that I kind of took a step back from. I didn't really want to be that person who was managing other people. And that would have been, I was at the top of my pay scale. And the only way of going into the next grade would be a management role. And I didn't want to manage. It was something that wasn't really for me. I liked being I like being on the ground. I liked being the kind of people person, going into schools, meeting families, and that kind of thing. So management was never really something that I would ever entertain. And then when it came to last year at my current job in the school that I work, I had the opportunity to step up and take a little more responsibility. And it was that kind of, oh, shall I, shan't I? And once I checked in with my family, and they were all very, complimentary and supportive. And so I went for it. So that was a transition going from part-time to full-time. which is quite interesting transition, because I hadn't worked full time since before I had the twins. So going from part-time to full-time in like 16 years was, I didn't really take on board how big that would have been, and juggling, obviously working, running my own business, working full-time, having children to vary here, there, and everywhere, and just life in general. It was a lot. And when that came to an end, so that was only temporary for one academic year. When that came to an end in the summer, it took me a few weeks to really decompress after the year. And at the time, I didn't think that it had taken its toll. And I say toll because I was just so exhausted. I didn't realize at the time that it was zapping my energy. And the job, I loved it. I really did. I really enjoyed working with the team and having that extra responsibility. It really suited my needs at the time, and it really fulfilled that element that I thought I was seeking, and that kind of sense of purposefulness and that want and desire. And it came at the perfect time. So I consider myself that I quite manifested that, because at the time I was kind of in a bit of a quandary and I didn't really know what I wanted to do and how I could see the job, my part-time job, go in. I was at a bit of a crossroads, and it came at the right time. And then since then, I've now returned to my substantive post, so back to my part-time, which then allows me a little more time to then really concentrate in the business and building UNFUNK Your Soul, and taking a little bit back for me. So that's been really good. So that's another transition and that kind of phase and growth, which has been a really interesting couple of weeks. So I'm still adapting to it, but it has been a month, and it's still a process. I kind of I forgot how undisciplined I can be as well. And as much as I was working full time and didn't really have much time to do social media and reply to emails and things like that, I realized I need to be more disciplined when I am working for myself. I need to be more disciplined. So that is something that I do realize, and I am going to be working on. It's something that not even a challenge. I just need to be a little more disciplined. So that's kind of another transition that I'm now going through, is like reverting back to part-time work, and how we go through these phases in life. And myself as a middle-aged woman going through this next phase, going into my crone sage era, I'm really looking forward and being quite excited by that prospect, and just giving less expletives, you know what I mean. And I'm really I feel like I'm finally stepping into my power and all that will bring, whether that's wisdom, growth, a little bit of self-compassion in that as well, and allowing myself that space when I need it. And how you kind of evolve and grow in that. So as I say, I'm middle-aged, you know, I'm almost 50 within a couple of months. And I know that obviously, like, go through perimenopause, and as your body changes, as we go through perimenopause, going into menopause, I still feel really young. And I think as long as I said, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and it was very much like, I enjoy exercise, I enjoy walking, I enjoy keeping fit, I enjoy throwing weights around, I enjoy getting my boxing gloves on and, you know, lamping the boxing bag. I enjoy all of that. And fitness for me isn't about being the thinnest, isn't about being the fittest. It's about keeping my body agile and being able to do what I want to. Now, I gave up leapfrogging a few years ago. I may have spoken about that on my socials. I'm just a big kid at heart, so I would love racing the kids. I would love leapfrogging over bollards. I remember once doing it and I was like, oh, I think I need to give up that. I don't think my hips are quite as flexible as they once were. And I remember really trying to get over a really high one. So maybe I could still carry on leapfrogging if I opted to go for a lower one rather than go for the highest one outside of a supermarket. It's not really a pretty sight if I get stuck or injure myself. And obviously, keeping fit and exercising helps prevent injury, but not when you go out to intentionally leapfrog a bollard. Even the logic in that sounds a bit daft, but I will keep on going. And like I say, I am quite competitive, so I will still race the kids. I will still ice skate, roller skate, although I've not been on my roller skates for a long time. Excuse me. And I always feel a little apprehensive when I get them back out. So I need to do it more then, don't I, really, so I can stop feeling so apprehensive and nervous when I get them out. But that kind of leads into kind of keeping fit, keeping healthy. So what I was going to talk about is that kind of menopause, perimenopause. Now and obviously I feel a little forgetful, or I could be having a conversation and a word will just go out of my head and I just can't place it at all. So is that brain fog? Is that just doing lots of like multitasking and having lots of tabs open in the brain and it's just not quite clicking? That could be a symptom of perimenopause. I'm not sure. I don't know, because obviously there's lots of different symptoms and everything else. And I feel as though, although there's nothing really apparent other than a little kind of like, I can't think of that word. So far, that seems to be maybe one symptom. I don't know. So in that respect, I keep taking my supplements. I keep remaining alcohol free. I'm still vegan. As I said, I can't see that changing at all. I've been vegan now for what will be 10 years in January. I've not drank alcohol for almost 3 years. And I think how I consider that is part of that kind of longevity, adding years to my life, as well as maintaining exercise and keep doing what I'm doing, because I feel as though that is working. There may be some other things I might add in, and I'm still in the kind of mulling over stage with a lot of those, with a few of those. But I just think as I am kind of stepping into, like I say, that crone era, I really think that I'm becoming more attuned to those transition and phases in life and those cycles that we go through. And I know, like in previous episodes, I've spoke about those kind of transitions and going into that next phase with my youngest children, getting ready to leave to go to university and move away, and what that brings, and that kind of transition going from full-time carer to caring, but from afar, and how that might look. So for me then to have gone from having one child to 3 children at home, to 2 children at home, to no children at home, and how that will look supporting 3 children with their own endeavors. It's going to be an interesting time. And, I speak about that kind of the emptiness, and it's not an emptiness because I think I'm looking forward to this next phase and what will happen, especially as the younger two go off and do their thing at university, and what that will look like for them being away from us as a family unit. And me supporting three individuals, and obviously it's different being at home when you're supporting your children because you're here and they're here as well. But when they're physically separated, and yeah, you've got your phone and you can visit, but they'll have three very separate lives going on, which will be really interesting, and juggling that, because I'm very conscious now of spending time with them and how that can look. And when you're a lone parent, when you have multiple children, multiples as in twins, it can be difficult to balance that. And I went through a phase where I was trying to have one-on-one time with them, so we can nurture our individual relationships, because there's always two of them. When I'm taking photos, there'll be two in a photo. It's difficult sometimes to then remember to take individual photos of them. So I have lots of photos of them together, because stand together, take a photo. Two for the price of one. So yeah, so I'm very conscious of that and how that will look, and that'll be another transition and how we can prepare for that. And part of that preparation is what I'd said to the twins when they were looking at universities, for them to go with each other so they can support each other in that next phase. And I witnessed something really spectacular between them the other day, and they'd had a disagreement, and they took it upon themselves without any real involvement from me, was having a frank discussion about how each of them were feeling about this disagreement. And they were articulating how they felt whilst listening to the other. And I even had to say to them, like a little while later, I was really impressed with how you dealt with that, and how you listened to each other's point of view and expressed yourselves so well. So even me sitting back, and I wasn't really mediating, because they were like giving each other like a free rein and listening to each other, because I'd kind of reflected and said, and before the before they had the repair session, when they'd had their disagreement, I'd said in my reflection of that is, I felt one of them had felt quite aggrieved and had reacted to that by saying certain things in a way, because they were so I'd say that's my only kind of view on it, is I think you said that because you were feeling aggrieved and it came out like that. It wasn't necessarily the right time to say it then. And then they'd had that kind of that really honest conversation, but we're listening to each other. And I think as a parent, I'm very aware of how my relationships have been with my siblings over the years, and that's made me very conscious how I've parented my children, well, the twins especially, because obviously there's two of them, and they can be very at times they don't necessarily get on and not necessarily very supportive of each other. And I know siblings can be like it, but I really want to give them the tools and that kind of common ground where they can actually speak to each other and listen to each other's feelings and come to an agreement, a conclusion, without falling out and not speaking to each other, and not really having that emotional bandwidth to even articulate. So I was really pleased with how they dealt with it. And I hope that they continue to do it, because I feel that it is powerful as adults to have that emotional intelligence and want and desire to work through things, because I don't feel as though I was given those tools, or no, not necessarily given them, was guided in how to do that. And I can see that from my own experiences of not even being given a voice and being ignored by parents when something's gone wrong. And I know there's always a time when you really have to kind of hold it together as a parent, and you do need time to kind of like, if you need time to kind of think things through, and kind of deal with things privately. But at some point then you've got to come back to the conversation and talk things through to enable you to repair. And I think for me, as I grew up and also into my adult life, that hasn't been mirrored back, or that has never been an option for me to mirror that back, because I've never seen it in from my own parents. It's always kind of do as I say, rather than, okay, well, if you're not happy with that, why that, having that opportunity to discuss things through. That was never a thing. It was kind of like, okay, not even if you're in the wrong, you were never even told if you were in the wrong. You just had kind of weeks of silent treatment, which that silent treatment can turn into months. Or you can have, it's all forgotten about, well, not forgotten about, just crack on, and it's as if nothing's happened. So they actually leave you questioning, things never get resolved. So that was something that I was quite mindful with my own children, is that I want them to have the tools, the skills to be able to resolve the difficulties, to listen to each other, to be able to voice their thoughts and feelings without fear of being given the silent treatment and not being able to honor themselves. So that's something that I was really, I was blown away by how amazing they were in working that difficulty out. So that's going into that next transition, and it's kind of like being aware of how that would look for my twins when they go, but also how I will support 3 individuals going about their individual life. So if you have any hints or tips, parent of older children that have flown the nest, I would love to hear how you manage those different lives, physically as well as emotionally, and how that can look. It doesn't have to be like a formal, okay, we're all going to have a group Zoom once a month. No. I know that's a bit too contrived and everything else, but so I'm looking forward to that next transition. So this episode has always been about phases and transitions and how we go through them, and what lessons can be learned as we go through these different phases. So from redundancy to that kind of retraining, and where I am now, from part-time work to full-time work, back to part-time work, and also as a parent, and how we can prepare for that change when your children leave home, whether that's going to university, whether that is getting their own place and moving out, and how we can balance those kind of needs of our children going forward. So it's how we can balance that kind of transition. So it has been a pleasure as always, and this is me kind of going through those kind of musings and things that come up for me and for you, because as you come on this journey, you are going to go through these phases. There are going to be these transitions. You are on the cusp of a new era of you, and what that may look like, and what kind of transition is coming up for you. So whether that is retraining, is it a new job, is it a house move, is it your children leaving, is it your children coming back, we're always going to go through these transitions, and how we can remain grounded in ourselves and the practices that we have. Like I spoke about, I'm trying to add years to my life. I am being quite mindful of my interaction and who I let into my immediate circle, upholding my boundaries and remaining true. And that's my takeaway from this, is how are you honoring yourself through these next life transitions?